Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Gachiakuta Season 1, Episode 6. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we catch up with Rudo and the support team as they're making their escape. But before they could get away, Jabber, the raider that popped up at the end of last episode, caught up with them because he took out Zonka. Zonka's not dead, but he knocked him out. Because his perspective is, I'm not going to kill anyone strong. I'm just going to make them indisposed at the moment. Because he's all about killing the weak. Because I think it's the whole mentality of, I think the Raiders' probably larger goal is to probably get every giver on their side under whatever circumstances, and that's what's motivating them to come after Rudo. Because it's interesting because Jabber's coming after Rudo because their boss wants, or someone wants to meet Rudo. I can only assume it's their boss. So the question then becomes why, and why specifically Rudo? Is it because he's a Spirite? Because now I'm wondering if the raider from last episode, the one who could control mud, that whole, there's another Spirite here. What if that wasn't full, complete and utter bullshit? Like, what if there's actually a Spirite who is leading the Raiders or something like that? Because there was a whole conversation that Zonka was picking up on too about the whole, like, crossing the border. That's why Rudo's so special. So meaning, like, maybe anyone else who falls through here from the spear will die, except a special case like Rudo and maybe who's ever leading the Spirites. I mean, the first thing that immediately comes to mind, you're like, well, you don't think it's like his dad or something, right? Because the whole his dad being a murderer, and like, I mean, they threw him in the pit, didn't they? I don't think they just straight up killed him. I think they threw him in the pit, but I could be mistaken. I don't remember now. Because the punishment for anyone is just to go thrown in a pit. That's your death sentence. But I'm like, so that's why I'm like, I don't know. His dad popping up and being a villain or something like that just feels like that's where this could go. But maybe it's someone else. Maybe it's not even a Spirite. Maybe it's someone else entirely. But Rudo does seem to be special from the beginning. Because for one, whatever happened to his hands being what they are, his giver ability being what it is. And then on top of that, like Recto's death and whatever murders his dad was accused. There's a lot there, so. But Gris and the other guy, because I'm blanking on the other supporter's name, are trying to defend Rudo against this guy, Jabber, and they can't obviously lay any hands on him because they don't have any vital instruments. They're not givers. Granted, Home Dude does in fact have the potential for it, but he looks over to Gris and is like, you don't at all, so I'm going to get rid of you because you're a weakling. And in that moment, Rudo is like, yo, get out of my way. You don't need to be here. Just don't get caught up in this. Like, I can handle them. And in that moment, he's like, ooh, sorry about that. Like, you might be pissed at me, Rudo, but I think he's already dead. And he had stabbed, in that very moment where, like, Rudo didn't even perceive it, didn't even notice it, he'd already stabbed Gris and, like, rips into him, and his talisman falls out. And I loved how that was done, like that very like sketch-esque like animation for that moment where just everything's like black and white and just like the lines, like I said, it's very sketched drawing. And just in that moment, like Rudo like losing it and reaching for the talisman, and we flash back to early days, I think, with Recto, where Recto like comes in and finds Rudo just bashing his head against the wall, and for him it's like his hands don't hurt as much, the pain has like lessened, but for him he's just so angry and he doesn't know how to like outlet it, because he's like, right, you told me not to hurt people, and so the only way he could like vent his frustration and his anger is to hurt himself. And he's like, I don't even know why I'm angry. And so Recto wants him to have like a better outlet, so it's like, right, let's go out in the world, like go around town, and we're going to find something you like. In fact, you know, it's almost like giving you purpose, giving you an outlet for things. And like, because he understands, he's like, oh, you're dealing with the subconscious issue of you felt like you were thrown away by your parents, you feel worthless. And even Rudo's like, what does it mean to feel like what is worthless? And so it's like, let's go around town, find some things that you like. In fact, we can bring it back here and fill the walls and the entire room with stuff that you like. But going around, nothing really speaks to Rudo until like they watch someone from the clean side of the city like dump something out, and Rudo immediately runs over to it, and it's like a mannequin head or something, and he's leaning over and he's crying, bursting into tears. He's like, why would they do that? And it's like, why are you? And it's like, now it really like gives you context and a better understanding of why Rudo is the way he is, why he's like so obsessed with things that are thrown away. I mean, Rectu says like, oh, it's not like this goes beyond just projection, because there is an element of, on a deeper psychological level, you can understand like someone who felt thrown away by his parents finding value in things that others would throw away. And so it's almost like he's projecting himself onto the object, but it's also like much more. This seems like it stems from maybe his power as a giver to always like, I mean, I think it almost becomes that chicken or the egg. Like, does your power influence your personality, or does your personality influence your power? On a very Misfits thing, if you've ever seen the show Misfits, a lot of those characters' abilities are reflections of their own personalities and manifest that way. But like for Recto, his like being able to sit and see the life of these objects, does that stem from like, once again, his feeling of worthlessness and being thrown away himself and trying to find value in himself and seeing the value in things that others don't see value in, and wanting to fix him up? Like, that's the thing that's so important to him, because maybe on some level it's like, if he can find value in these things, he in turn finds value in himself, and that becomes his purpose, his value. But like I said, I don't know if like that just stems from his power, or did his power stem from that psychological need in him. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. And so that, like I said, that's an exploration into why Recto is like so big. I mean, not Recto, sorry. Rudo is so big into like collecting stuff, and and it's not like he collects everything. He picks up very specific things because, once again, he has the eye for it. He sees like, yo, the true value of things. And so in that moment, he grabs, back in present day, he grabs the talisman and he activates it and turns it into like this giant eyeball guardian of like, it's almost like this all-seeing eye of like, it can kind of see everything, and it acts as like this guardian. And it's really interesting because Gris kind of finally understands. He's like, right, why we were so getting it wrong on how Rudo's powers work. We're thinking he can turn things into his vital instrument. His real power is taking an object and unleashing its uninhibited worth. And it's interesting, like, as the fight progresses, you know, he's duking it out with Jabber, but he's not fighting offensively. He's kind of more so trickstery and royal guard. If you're familiar with like Devil May Cry 3 on, or like Dante has all these different fighting styles. Like the trickster's the more like evasive, acrobatic, agility based things, and royal guard's all about like blocking and parrying, right? So there's a little bit of that mixed in this regard. And Jabber's like, whoa. Because he's like, oh, I think I know your ability, which he doesn't. You're only seeing a fraction of what Rudo... You're only seeing this version of his ability, because like the scale of what he's capable of doing. I mean, I guess if anything, if you had to compare me to anything, I get you almost... I guess like my point of reference would be like, even though I'm not well versed in him, there's a little Green Lantern in that, in his capabilities as a giver. Just because like their thing is like, lanterns in general, but once again, I'm not well versed in the different colors, so I'll just stick with Green Lanterns. The powers are based on constructs. Whatever you can imagine is what manifests. So Rudo's kind of a similar thing, where we find out his fight, because initially like Jabber's attacking him, but he's not hitting, and it's like, what's going on? And then I'm like, oh, it's Rudo evading it. It's like, well, technically he's not gonna always see is Rudo like wiping his hands, like swiping his hands in front, and Jabber keeps missing. And then Rudo's like, yo, I'm not moving at all. I'm not the one I haven't taken a step. You're the one that's doing all the moving. And it's because it turns out this thing's ability is to actually like, because he says that the charm's initial thing that Gris put so much like effort into, is like he prays to this day that everyone comes back safe. The best way to come back safe is meaning to come back uninjured, and to come back uninjured, you need the best defense possible. So basically this thing in its manifested form is all about protection and making sure he comes away unharmed, and so it's almost like it pushes away all threats in a sense. And so that's where we really get into the nitty gritty of Rudo's power. He basically, as Gris was kind of saying, it's like the purpose of each item, whatever worth and value, it's almost like the soul that is given to the item by the person's like what this item represents and what it can be to that said person. Like, you instill it with a soul by putting so much value into it, and it's like he's able to manifest that value and bend it to kind of meet his needs, but it still has to be in some way, shape, or form correlative to what its original purpose was. It's like he's able to manifest it into a weapon or a defense in this case. It's really interesting, and it's like a very heady concept, I think. But it's like it's really interesting to see how that's going to be applicable to different objects going forward, though, you know? And it almost makes you go back in retrospect. It's like, okay, so some of the ways he was fighting previously without really understanding how his ability worked. What does that mean about those particular objects? But yeah, if it wasn't for Gris, like, reminding him, you know, because he's like, yo, like, if it wasn't for you, Gris, I'd be lashing out in anger like I always did. Like, Rectu, like, pulled him back from that previously, and it took Gris kind of helping, like, take that anger of his and kind of, like, find his footing again after everything. Because after everything he's been through, he's just been angry and basically lashing out, you know, trying to reconcile and deal with things in that regard, because the whole thing is like, right, he just let his emotions, they've been wearing him down, like all that has been like keeping him from fully tapping into his ability. But anyway, like, Jabber tries to attack him and is like, I know where you're going to be because I'm going to move you. Basically, this power is going to let me move you to where I need you to be. And then I'm going to do what Gris does best and use his fist. And then I'm going to beat the ever-living shit out of you, you shithead. He's like, you can stop calling me shithead. You know my name now. It's like, I'm not going to dignify you by calling you by your name. You're going to be shithead to me for now and forever. And so every time he attacks, Rudo is laying into him, punching him. Gut punches to the face over and over again. No matter how much he's zipping around, Rudo either will elbow him and just punch him straight on. He's able to kind of deal with it a little bit because he's testing the waters, we find out later on. But Jabber cuts up some of the pillars and is throwing some of the cement blocks at Rudo, and he's obviously dodging him because his thing is, like I said, this all-seeing eye where it's trying to locate Jabber and it's locating other stuff and helping Rudo dodge. But yeah, Jabber can't get that best of him and just gets laid out again and again and again. But you're like, there's no way this fight's gonna go this smoothly, especially considering this is Rudo's first fight with a giver, and it's like you don't know how crazy these fights can get because at this point he hadn't really been using his weapons because he's just been using them as claws with his own agility and his own ability, but it's like he hadn't really tapped into one of the unique abilities of his claws, and he talked about it earlier. It's like the venom from it, and I'm sure maybe he has different venoms he can remove from it, because what he used to get Zonka was a paralytic, so I guess maybe he had different venoms it can produce to have different things, because what he ultimately does is he's saying right, this was a tit for tat. You got some of you got to feel good about fighting me and beating me up. So you got a little taste for the fight. So now we can really kick things into overdrive. He's like, that eye of yours, I've noticed it can't initially react to objects because it's all about murderous intent. So you don't fully know where I am until I'm close to you. So I'm going to inject myself with this neurotoxin and basically make me go berserk. If I'm not driven by the instinctual thought of I'm going with you from with the intent to harm you, if I'm just kind of going sporadic and if it adds this unpredictability to my movement, let's see how you handle this. So we see him activate the neurotoxin, and then he gets to it, and that's where the episode ends. So it's going to be interesting to see where this how this all plays out, especially because once again Jabber's under the impression that he doesn't know that Rudo's power applies to multiple objects. It's not just what's in, so I think he's kind of picking that up, but he still doesn't know the full phrasing on my part, but girth rather of what Rudo's capable of. So once again, and we don't even know he can like use multiple objects at once. Obviously, this object's got all of his intention, but like if he manages to get his hands on another item and is able to draw at its power, it probably could help him on a more offensive front where he's more, like I said, he's on the more evasive and defensive front. So it's all, I mean, it's all been counterattacks at this point in time. So that might not be applicable with like Jabber being in what essentially is a frenzied state. It's not like, it seems like this isn't the first time he's done this. It seems like he's done it from time to time, and he enjoys the feeling when like he kind of goes berserk. So like I said, we'll have to wait to see where things kind of go. The team that got away, will they be able to get some support in time? Will enough time have passed for Zonka to show up to back up Rudo? We'll have to wait to see. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.